The morning that changed everything. The aroma of freshly baked pastries filled the air as sunlight streamed through the large windows of Oakwood Bakery, a beloved corner cafe nestled in a lively city neighborhood. The bakery was a hub for locals, a place where everyone felt at home. Behind the counter, Maya, the head cashier, greeted each customer with her signature smile. Her warmth and professionalism made her a favorite among regulars, and her radiant energy was often the highlight of their mornings. Maya had worked at Oakwood Bakery for 5 years, and in that time, she had built relationships with countless customers. Her kindness and resilience were her trademarks. On this particular morning, Maya's focus was on the growing line of customers as the morning rush reached its peak. "Good morning," she greeted cheerfully as an elderly man stepped up to the counter. "The usual, Mr. Lewis." He nodded with a grin. "You've got me figured out, Maya. Don't know what I'd do without your coffee and blueberry scone." As Maya rang up his order, the door jingled, signaling the arrival of a new customer. Maya glanced up and saw a middle-aged woman in a tailored coat and designer sunglasses step in. Her demeanor radiated impatience as she scanned the bustling cafe. Maya made a mental note to serve her quickly, knowing that some customers were less tolerant of waiting. Mr. Lewis gave Maya a friendly nod as he left with his order. Maya turned her attention to the woman, who was now standing in front of her. "Good morning," Maya said, her tone as welcoming as ever. "How can I help you today?" The woman lowered her sunglasses, revealing a sharp, scrutinizing gaze. She hesitated before speaking, her lips curling slightly in disapproval. "I'd like to be served by someone else," she said, her voice loud enough to catch the attention of nearby customers. Maya blinked, taken aback by the request. "I'm happy to take your order," she offered, her voice calm and professional. The woman's expression hardened. "I said I'd prefer someone else," she repeated, crossing her arms. "Is there a manager here?" The room grew quieter. Conversations among the other customers dwindled as heads turned toward the counter. Maya could feel the weight of their gazes, the collective tension building with each passing second. Still, she maintained her composure, standing tall despite the unease gnawing at her. "Our manager is in the back," Maya replied evenly, motioning toward the kitchen. "But I assure you, I can help you with anything you need." The woman's jaw tightened, her voice dripping with disdain. "I don't want you handling my food," she said bluntly, her words cutting through the room like a knife. For a moment, Maya's heart sank, but she quickly steadied herself. She had dealt with difficult customers before, but this was different. The hostility wasn't about the service, it was personal. Still, she refused to let her frustration show. She had learned long ago that strength often lay in restraint. Before Maya could respond, the kitchen door swung open, and Caleb, the bakery's manager, stepped out. Caleb was a tall, affable man with a booming laugh and a reputation for treating his employees like family. He immediately sensed the tension in the room. "What seems to be the problem?" Caleb asked, his gaze shifting between Maya and the woman. The woman turned to him with a look of exaggerated relief. "Finally, someone in charge," she said, her tone oozing entitlement. "I don't want her serving me. Surely, you have someone more appropriate." Caleb's friendly demeanor didn't falter, but his eyes darkened slightly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. What do you mean by appropriate?" The woman hesitated, glancing around the room as if realizing that she had an audience. She leaned closer to Caleb and whispered, "You know exactly what I mean." Maya stood silently, her hands resting on the counter, her face a mask of calm. Inside, however, she felt a swirl of emotions: anger, hurt, and an overwhelming determination not to let this moment define her. Caleb straightened his posture, his voice firm. "With all due respect, ma'am, Maya is one of our best employees. If you have an issue with her, then I'm afraid that's your problem, not ours." The woman's face turned a shade redder, her indignation growing. "I'm a paying customer," she snapped. "I have the right to be comfortable with who serves me. And I have the right to stand by my staff," Caleb shot back. If you can't treat Maya with the respect she deserves, I'll have to ask you to leave." The tension in the room was palpable. Several customers murmured their agreement, while others looked on in stunned silence. The woman glanced around, perhaps hoping to find an ally, but was met only with disapproving stares. "You'll regret this," the woman hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "I'll make sure everyone knows how unprofessional this place is." Caleb didn't flinch. "Feel free," he replied coolly. "But if you choose to spread lies about this bakery or my staff, be aware that there are witnesses here who will gladly tell the truth." The woman's gaze darted to the phones pointed discreetly in her direction, their cameras capturing every moment. Her bravado faltered as she realized the full weight of the situation. Maya stood silently, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know whether to feel proud or overwhelmed, but she held her head high, refusing to let the woman's words diminish her. Finally, the woman huffed, grabbing her designer bag and storming toward the door. The bell above it jingled sharply as she left. For a moment, there was silence, and then the room erupted into applause. Maya blinked in surprise, her cheeks flushing as the customers around her clapped and cheered. "You handled that like a pro," one man said, giving her a thumbs up. Another customer chimed in. "You're amazing, Maya. Don't let people like her get to you." Maya offered a small, grateful smile, but the emotions of the encounter still lingered. She glanced at Caleb, who gave her a reassuring nod. "You okay?" he asked gently. Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah, I'm okay." As the morning rush continued, Maya pushed through, her resolve stronger than ever. She refused to let one person's prejudice overshadow the kindness of the community she had worked so hard to build. And though the sting of the encounter remained, she knew she wasn't alone. The support of her coworkers and the customers reminded her of her worth, and that was more powerful than any hateful words. A ripple in the bakery. The confrontation between Maya and the customer had sent ripples through the bakery that morning, leaving an air of mixed emotions among the patrons and staff. Even after the applause died down and the line of customers resumed, the incident lingered in the minds of everyone present. For Maya, the tension lingered more deeply, though she maintained her professional composure. Behind the counter, Maya worked swiftly, her hands expertly wrapping pastries, pouring coffees, and ringing up orders. Each customer who stepped up to the register offered her a smile or a word of encouragement, but the heaviness of the earlier interaction sat quietly in her chest. Maya wasn't one to dwell on negativity, but she couldn't shake the woman's sharp words or the disapproving look in her eyes. It wasn't just about her. It was about what she represented, an unwelcome reminder that prejudice still lived quietly in the hearts of some. The morning rush eventually gave way to a lull. Caleb, standing by the espresso machine, watched Maya closely. He had known her long enough to recognize when she was putting on a brave face. Quietly, he approached her. "Maya," he said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Why don't you take a break? You've been going nonstop." Maya hesitated, glancing at the line of pastries that needed restocking. "I'm fine, Caleb," she said with a small smile. "Really? There's still so much to do." Caleb frowned but didn't push her. He knew Maya's work ethic was unparalleled, but he also knew she tended to bury her emotions under her responsibilities. "Just promise me you'll let me know if you need anything," he said, "even if it's just a moment to breathe." Maya nodded, grateful for his understanding. "I will. Thank you." As Caleb stepped back, one of the regulars, a woman named Angela, approached the counter. Angela was a teacher at a nearby elementary school, and her daily visits to the bakery were always accompanied by a cheerful demeanor. "Maya," Angela began, her voice warm and filled with concern, "I just wanted to say how much I admire the way you handled that woman earlier. It couldn't have been easy." Maya's cheeks flushed slightly, and she offered a modest smile. "Thank you, Angela. I just tried to stay professional." Angela leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "You did more than that. You showed strength and grace. Not everyone could have stood their ground like that." Maya nodded, appreciating Angela's words more than she could express. "It means a lot to hear that," she said sincerely. Angela smiled and placed her order, chatting briefly about her students and the holiday season before leaving with her coffee and scone. As Maya watched her go, she felt a flicker of pride. The support from customers like Angela reminded her why she loved her job despite moments like the one that morning. A new face in the crowd. Just as Maya was beginning to find her rhythm again, the doorbell jingled, and a man in his late 30s stepped inside. He was sharply dressed in a tailored suit, his polished leather shoes clicking softly against the tiled floor. His presence commanded attention, though he moved with a calm, measured air. Maya had never seen him before, and she quickly straightened, ready to greet him. "Good morning," she said, her smile returning naturally. "What can I get for you?" The man studied the menu for a moment before replying. "Just a cappuccino, please." Maya nodded and rang up his order, her hands moving deftly over the register. As she prepared his drink, she felt his gaze on her, not in a scrutinizing way, but with a quiet curiosity. When she turned to hand him the steaming cup, he smiled warmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice smooth and pleasant. "You're Maya, right?" Maya blinked, slightly caught off guard. "Yes, I am," she replied cautiously. "How did you know?" The man chuckled lightly. "Word travels fast in a place like this. I overheard what happened earlier." Maya's stomach sank slightly. She wasn't sure if she wanted the incident to become a topic of conversation, especially with a stranger. "Oh," she said, keeping her tone neutral. "Well, I hope it didn't cause too much of a disturbance." The man shook his head. "Not at all. In fact, I think you handled it remarkably well." He extended a hand. "I'm James Porter. I work just down the street at Parker and Lewis Law Firm." Maya hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. His grip was firm but not overpowering. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Porter." "Please call me James," he said with a friendly smile. "And for what it's worth, I think you showed incredible poise back there. Not everyone has the courage to stand tall in the face of that kind of ignorance." Maya felt her cheeks warm again. "Thank you, James. That means a lot." He nodded, taking a sip of his cappuccino. "It's not just me who noticed, either. My colleagues were talking about it this morning. You've made quite an impression." Maya wasn't sure how to respond. The idea that her actions had resonated beyond the bakery was both humbling and a little overwhelming. "I was just doing my job," she said softly. James tilted his head slightly. "Maybe so, but sometimes just doing your job takes extraordinary strength. People notice that." The video goes viral. Later that afternoon, as the lunch rush slowed and the bakery settled into a quieter rhythm, Maya found herself with a rare moment to check her phone. She scrolled through her notifications, her brow furrowing as she noticed several messages from friends. Opening one of the messages, she found a link to a video posted on social media. Her heart sank as she realized it was a recording of the incident from that morning. The video, taken by one of the customers, had already been shared thousands of times. The caption read, "Cashier teaches a racist customer a lesson in grace and strength." Maya hesitated before hitting play. Watching herself on screen felt surreal. The video captured every moment: the woman's condescending tone, Caleb's unwavering defense, and the supportive comments from the other customers. Most strikingly, it showed Maya's calm and dignified response. The comments below the video were overwhelmingly positive. "What an amazing display of professionalism. Maya, you're a star. This is how you deal with hate, with class and strength. Shout out to the manager for standing up for his employee. We need more workplaces like this." Maya's eyes welled up as she read the words of encouragement pouring in from strangers. While the incident had been painful, the outpouring of support reminded her of the good in people. As she set her phone down, Caleb approached with a knowing smile. "You saw the video, didn't you?" Maya nodded. "I did. It's a lot to take in." Caleb chuckled. It's not every day you go viral for doing the right thing. Maya shook her head, still processing everything. I just hope it helps people understand that kindness and respect go a long way. Caleb patted her shoulder. It already has, Maya. You've shown people what real strength looks like, and that's something worth celebrating. Maya smiled, a sense of pride swelling within her. Despite the challenges of the day, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just a cashier at a bakery. She was someone who could inspire others to stand up against hate and to believe in the power of kindness. The unexpected consequences. The sun had risen higher in the sky, bathing the bakery in golden light as the lunch crowd began to trickle in. The incident from the morning felt like a distant memory to some, but for Maya, the weight of the encounter lingered. Her phone buzzed incessantly, messages pouring in from friends, family, and even old acquaintances who had seen the viral video. It wasn't just local attention either. The video had somehow made its way onto a few major social media platforms. Within hours, it had been reposted by influencers, advocacy groups, and even a few small news outlets. Each repost brought with it waves of both admiration and debate. Maya, however, didn't have the luxury of sitting back and processing it all. The bakery still needed her, and she was determined to keep things running smoothly. The interview request. Maya was restocking the pastry case when Caleb walked over, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. In his hand was a business card with a sleek, professional design. Maya, we need to talk, he said, motioning for her to join him near the coffee bar. She followed, wiping her hands on her apron. What's up? Caleb handed her the card. It bore the logo of a prominent local news station. A reporter from Channel 8 was just here. They want to interview you about what happened this morning. Maya's stomach flipped. An interview? Caleb, I don't think I'm ready for that. I told them I'd talk to you first, Caleb said, his tone gentle. But Maya, this story is already out there, and people are rallying behind you. Maybe this is a chance to use your voice, to say something that could really make a difference. Maya stared at the card, her mind racing. She wasn't someone who sought the spotlight. Her life had always been about quiet resilience, about doing what needed to be done without drawing attention to herself. The idea of being on TV, of her face, and her story being broadcast to thousands of people, felt overwhelming. What if I say the wrong thing? She asked softly. Caleb smiled. You won't. Just be yourself. That's what people connected with in the first place. Maya bit her lip, considering his words. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll do it. Preparing for the spotlight. The reporter, a poised woman named Clara, arrived later that afternoon with a cameraman in tow. She was kind and professional, taking the time to explain the process to Maya and reassure her that the interview would focus on her perspective and the broader message of standing up to discrimination. As the cameraman set up, Clara sat with Maya at one of the bakery's tables. I've seen the video, Clara began, her tone warm. What struck me most was how calm you remained, even when faced with something so blatantly hateful. How did you manage that? Maya hesitated, searching for the right words. I think it's because I've faced situations like that before. Maybe not so public, but enough to know that reacting with anger doesn't help. I've always believed that dignity speaks louder than words. Clara nodded, impressed. That's a powerful statement. What do you hope people take away from this story? Maya glanced out the window for a moment, collecting her thoughts. I hope it reminds people that kindness and respect aren't optional. They're basic human decency, and when someone forgets that, it's up to the rest of us to stand up, not with hate, but with strength. The interview lasted only about 10 minutes, but by the end of it, Maya felt like she had run a marathon. Clara thanked her warmly, promising to share the story in the most respectful and impactful way possible. As the crew packed up, Clara turned to Maya one last time. You've got something special, Maya. Don't underestimate the influence your story can have. Maya offered a small, grateful smile. Thank you. Backlash and support. By the next morning, the interview had aired, and Maya's face was everywhere. The bakery saw an influx of customers, many of whom had come specifically to meet the woman from the video. Some brought flowers, others simply offered words of encouragement, but all of them were united in their admiration for Maya's grace under pressure. However, with the attention came a darker side. Maya began receiving messages online, some supportive, but others filled with hateful rhetoric. She tried to ignore them, but a few struck a nerve. "You're just playing the victim," one comment read. "Why couldn't you just let the customer be served by someone else and avoid the drama?" Another said, "This is what's wrong with society. People like you always looking for reasons to be offended." Maya's heart ached as she read the words, but she refused to let them overshadow the outpouring of love and support she had received. She knew that standing up for what was right often came with resistance, and she wasn't about to back down now. A visit from an unexpected guest. A few days later, during a quieter afternoon, the bell above the door jingled, and Maya looked up to see a familiar face she hadn't expected to see again. It was the woman from that morning, the one who had refused to be served by her. The bakery fell silent as the woman approached the counter. Maya stood her ground, her expression calm but wary. The woman hesitated, her hands clutching the strap of her expensive handbag. She looked different, less composed, almost vulnerable. "Maya," she began, her voice quieter than before. I owe you an apology." Maya blinked, taken aback. "An apology?" she echoed. The woman nodded, her gaze dropping to the counter. "I've been thinking about what happened. Seeing that video, hearing what people said about me. It made me realize how wrong I was." Maya studied the woman carefully, searching for sincerity. "Why now?" she asked. "What changed?" The woman sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I guess I didn't realize how hateful I sounded until I saw myself through other people's eyes. I thought I was just expressing a preference, but I see now that it was more than that. It was prejudice, plain and simple." Maya's chest tightened. She wasn't sure if she could fully forgive the woman, but she also believed in the power of change. "Words have consequences," she said gently, "but so do actions. What you do next matters more than anything you say right now." The woman nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "You're right. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and I'm trying to do better." Maya stood quietly for a moment before offering a small nod. "Thank you for saying that." As the woman left, the bakery seemed to exhale collectively. Caleb approached Maya, his expression unreadable. "How do you feel?" he asked. Maya sighed. "I don't know, but I think it's a start. Strength in community." The days following the viral incident brought a mix of challenges and revelations. For Maya, the whirlwind of attention was both overwhelming and humbling. Customers, strangers online, and even old friends reached out to share their support and admiration. Yet with the spotlight came moments of doubt. Was she truly making a difference, or had she simply become another fleeting social media story? The bakery itself had become busier than ever. Curious customers flocked to the Oakwood Bakery, not just for the pastries but to meet Maya. Many wanted to thank her personally, their words of encouragement reminding her that the moment she wished she could forget had left an indelible mark on countless lives. However, the increased traffic wasn't without its complications. The growing crowds put a strain on the small team. Maya worked longer hours, determined to keep up with the rush. But Caleb noticed the toll it was taking. "Hey," Caleb said one afternoon, stepping into the small back room where Maya was sorting receipts. "I've been thinking, maybe it's time we hired a couple more hands. You're running yourself rag out there." Maya looked up, exhaustion evident in her eyes, but she shook her head. "I can handle it. I don't want to leave anyone hanging." Caleb sighed, leaning against the doorway. "You're amazing, Maya, but you're not a machine. Even you need a break sometimes." Before Maya could respond, The bell above the door chimed, signaling another customer. Caleb gave her a knowing look. "Go. I'll handle the rest of these. And promise me you'll think about what I said." Maya nodded, grateful for Caleb's support. She slipped back into the main area, bracing herself for the afternoon rush. A quiet advocate. The line at the counter moved quickly as Maya worked her way through orders. She noticed a familiar face near the back. A young woman who had been in the bakery several times over the past week, but never seemed in a hurry to order. She often sat at a corner table, sipping tea and typing furiously on her laptop. Today, however, the woman stepped forward, clutching the small notebook. She looked nervous as she approached Maya. "Hi," the woman began, her voice soft but steady. "I don't know if you remember me, but my name's Elena. I've been coming here for a while." Maya smiled warmly. "Of course, I remember you, Elena. You're the tea and almond croissant regular." Elena laughed, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "That's me. I wanted to say something. I hope it's okay." Maya tilted her head curiously. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Elena hesitated, glancing around the bustling cafe before leaning in slightly. "I saw the video," she admitted. "And I've been thinking a lot about how people like me, people who aren't directly affected by racism, don't always know how to speak up. I want to help, but I don't always know how." Maya's expression softened. "It's not easy," she said gently. "But the fact that you want to try means a lot. Sometimes it's as simple as not staying silent when you see something wrong. Even small actions can make a difference." Elena nodded, her grip on her notebook tightening. "I've been writing about it, about how we can do better as allies. I wasn't sure if I should share it, but maybe it's time." Maya smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Words have power, Elena. If you can inspire others to speak up, that's a step in the right direction." Elena's eyes lit up, and for the first time, she seemed truly at ease. "Thank you, Maya. I'll try." As Elena walked away, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The ripple effects of her actions were reaching further than she'd imagined, touching lives in ways she couldn't have foreseen. A challenging encounter. Despite the support pouring in from the community, not all interactions were positive. One afternoon, as the bakery settled into its post-lunch lull, a man in a crisp suit entered, his demeanor cold and calculating. He stepped up to the counter and scanned the menu without acknowledging Maya's presence. "What can I get for you?" Maya asked, her tone professional. The man didn't look up. "Coffee, black, and one of those apple turnovers." Maya nodded, quickly preparing his order. When she handed him the bag, he finally looked at her, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You're the girl from that video," he said, his voice flat. Maya's stomach tightened, but she kept her expression neutral. "I am," she replied. He smirked, his tone turning condescending. "You must feel pretty proud of yourself, huh? All this attention for what? Making a scene." Maya froze, the words hitting harder than she expected. She took a steadying breath before responding. "I didn't ask for the attention," she said calmly. "I was just doing my job." The man chuckled, shaking his head. "Sure, but don't think for a second that people like me are buying into your little sob story." Before Maya could respond, a voice cut through the air. "Is there a problem here?" It was Caleb, his tone firm as he stepped forward, his presence commanding. The man's smirk faltered slightly, but he shrugged. "No problem. Just making an observation." "Well, here's another observation," Caleb said, crossing his arms. "If you don't have anything respectful to say to my staff, you're welcome to take your coffee and leave." The man scoffed but didn't argue. He grabbed his bag and walked out without another word, the bell jingling sharply behind him. Caleb turned to Maya, his expression softening. "You okay?" Maya nodded, her gratitude for Caleb's unwavering support evident in her eyes. "Yeah, thank you." The fundraiser. A week later, Caleb called an impromptu staff meeting after closing. He gathered everyone in the cozy seating area, a stack of flyers in his hands. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened," Caleb began, his voice steady. "And I realize that we have an opportunity here. This bakery has always been about more than just food. It's about community. So I want us to host a fundraiser." Maya looked up, intrigued. "A fundraiser?" Caleb nodded. "We'll donate a portion of our profits to an organization that supports equality and inclusion, something that reflects the values we all believe in." The team murmured their approval, and Maya felt a swell of pride. Caleb's idea was a perfect way to turn the incident into something positive, something that could bring people together. Over the next few days, the bakery was transformed. Flyers adorned the windows, and a donation jar sat on the counter, quickly filling with bills and coins from generous customers. The fundraiser became a community event, drawing people from all over the neighborhood. Local musicians performed, children painted signs with messages of love and acceptance, and volunteers shared information about advocacy organizations. Maya found herself at the heart of it all, her story now a symbol of resilience and hope. As she looked around at the sea of smiling faces, she realized that the bakery had become more than just a workplace. It was a beacon of unity, a place where people could come together to celebrate the values that truly mattered. And in that moment, Maya knew that the strength of a community could overcome even the darkest moments of hate. A ripple becomes a wave. The community fundraiser at Oakwood Bakery had been an overwhelming success. Over the course of a week, the small cafe raised thousands of dollars for local organizations advocating for equality and social justice. Customers poured in, not just for pastries, but for the chance to participate in something larger, a movement sparked by Maya's unwavering dignity and strength. Though Maya had been the reluctant face of this movement, the experience had transformed her. She saw firsthand how standing up against prejudice could inspire others to do the same. However, the influx of attention also brought new challenges, as not everyone was supportive of her newfound platform. A quiet morning turned chaotic. On an uncharacteristically slow Thursday morning, Maya savored the rare quiet. She had arrived early to prep the bakery for the day, enjoying the peace of arranging fresh pastries in the display case. The bell above the door jingled, and she glanced up to see a young man in a hoodie and jeans walk in. His hands were stuffed into his pockets, his posture hesitant. "Good morning," Maya greeted him warmly. "What can I get for you?" The man approached the counter, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "I'm not here to order," he said, his voice low. "Are you Maya?" Maya's smile faltered slightly. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" He sighed and pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, placing it on the counter. "I think you need to see this." Maya unfolded the paper, her stomach sinking as she read the printed words. It was a flyer, plastered with hateful rhetoric, and a grainy screenshot of her face from the viral video. Below it were accusations labeling her as divisive and anti-freedom, alongside calls to boycott the bakery. She looked back at the man, her heart pounding. "Where did you find this?" "Someone was passing them out downtown," he said. "I don't know who, but I thought you should know." Maya swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly as she folded the flyer back up. "Thank you for bringing this to me." The man nodded, his expression sympathetic. "For what it's worth, I think what you're doing is incredible. Don't let this get to you." As he left, Maya stood frozen, the weight of the flyer heavy in her hands. Caleb entered the room moments later, a concerned look on his face. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately noticing the change in her demeanor. Wordlessly, Maya handed him the flyer. His jaw clenched as he read it, his face darkening. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "Whoever did this doesn't know the first thing about you." Maya sighed, leaning against the counter. "I thought we were making progress, Caleb. But this, it feels like we're back at square one." Caleb placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We are making progress. This is just the noise of people who are afraid of change. Don't let their fear dim your light." Maya nodded, but the knot in her stomach remained. She knew Caleb was right, but the flyer was a painful reminder that the fight for respect and equality was far from over. A conversation with an unexpected ally. Later that day, as the lunch crowd began to fill the bakery, Maya noticed James Porter, the sharply dressed lawyer who had defended her after the initial incident, seated at his usual corner table. He waved her over, his face unreadable. "Busy day?" he asked as she approached, motioning for her to sit. Maya managed a small smile. "It's always busy lately. What can I do for you?" James leaned forward, his tone serious. "I heard about the flyers. They're all over the district." Maya's chest tightened. "You saw them?" He nodded. "I did. And let me tell you something. They're not going to win. People like that thrive on fear, but fear only works if you let it." Maya sighed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "It's just hard, you know. I didn't ask to be a symbol for anything. I just wanted to do my job." James smiled sympathetically. "I get it. But sometimes we don't get to choose the moments that define us. What matters is how we respond." Maya looked at him, a flicker of determination returning to her eyes. "So, what do you suggest?" James tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. "Fight back with the truth. Host a community discussion. Use this bakery as a platform for dialogue. If they want to spread hate, you respond with unity." Maya mulled over his words. It wasn't the first time she'd thought about doing something bigger with the platform she'd inadvertently gained, but the idea of organizing a public event felt daunting. "You really think people would come?" she asked. James grinned. "After everything you've done, they'd be lining up at the door. A night of healing and hope." The idea quickly took shape. Over the next week, Maya, Caleb, and the rest of the bakery staff worked tirelessly to organize a community forum. They reached out to local leaders, educators, and activists, inviting them to speak about the importance of inclusion, respect, and standing up against prejudice. The night of the event, the bakery was packed. Chairs were set up in neat rows, and the smell of freshly baked cookies and coffee filled the air. Maya stood near the counter, nervously watching as the room filled with people of all ages and backgrounds. James approached her, dressed as impeccably as always. "You ready?" he asked. Maya took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The event began with Caleb introducing the speakers, each one sharing stories of resilience and hope. A local teacher talked about the importance of teaching children to embrace diversity, while a community leader shared their own experiences of overcoming discrimination. Finally, it was Maya's turn. She stepped up to the small podium, her hands gripping the edges tightly. The room fell silent as she began to speak. "I never wanted to be in the spotlight," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves. "I didn't set out to make a statement or spark a movement. But when that moment came, I realized something important. Sometimes, doing the right thing means standing your ground, even when it's hard, even when you're scared." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. "I've learned that kindness is powerful, but it's not enough on its own. We have to pair it with courage. We have to stand up for each other, not just in the big moments, but in the everyday ones." The room erupted in applause as Maya stepped back, her heart pounding. For the first time, she felt not just like a survivor of the incident, but like a leader, someone who could inspire change. A legacy of resilience. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of the event continued to spread. The bakery became a hub for community discussions, its walls adorned with messages of love and support from visitors. Maya received countless messages from people across the country, many of whom shared how her story had inspired them to confront prejudice in their own lives. And while the hateful flyers faded into obscurity, the lessons Maya had taught and learned remained. She realized that change didn't come from one big moment, but from a series of small, persistent actions. Each conversation, each act of kindness, and each stand against injustice was a step toward a better world. Maya didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. she would face it with the same strength and grace that had carried her through the toughest of days. A new chapter of unity. A month had passed since Oakwood Bakery hosted the community forum, and the energy from that night continued to reverberate through the neighborhood. The bakery had transformed into more than a place for coffee and pastries. It had become a symbol of resilience, unity, and change. Maya, once hesitant to embrace the role thrust upon her, found herself growing into it with quiet determination. A surprise visit. It was a chilly morning when Maya arrived at the bakery, her breath visible in the crisp air. As she unlocked the doors and prepared for another day, she noticed a small group of people gathered outside. Among them was an older woman holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Good morning," Maya greeted, smiling as she opened the door. "How can I help you all?" The older woman stepped forward, her eyes warm. "We've been wanting to meet you, Maya," she said. "I'm Margaret, and these are some members of the Oakwood Historical Society. We've been following your story." Maya blinked in surprise. "The Historical Society? I'm not sure how I fit into your work." Margaret chuckled. "You've brought this community together in a way we haven't seen in decades. We wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done." She handed Maya the bouquet, and the others chimed in with words of gratitude and admiration. A man in the group added, "Your story reminded us of why Oakwood was founded, a place where everyone, regardless of their background, could feel at home." Maya was deeply moved. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I didn't do this alone. This community, people like all of you, made it possible." Margaret smiled knowingly. "And every community needs a spark, Maya. You were ours." The bakery's transformation. Over the following weeks, the bakery underwent a subtle but profound transformation. The walls that once displayed generic coffee shop art were now adorned with photographs from the community forum, along with handwritten notes of gratitude from customers. A bulletin board near the entrance invited patrons to share their own stories of resilience, fostering a sense of connection among strangers. Caleb also announced a new initiative, a monthly Unity Night at the bakery. Each event would feature local speakers, artists, and musicians, creating a space for open dialogue and celebration of diversity. Maya threw herself into these events with enthusiasm, helping to coordinate schedules and inviting people from different walks of life to share their stories. Each Unity Night brought in new faces and strengthened the bonds within the community. One evening during a particularly packed event, Caleb pulled Maya aside. "I've been thinking," he said, his tone serious. "You've become such a vital part of what this bakery stands for. I want you to take on a bigger role here, not just as a cashier, but as a partner." Maya stared at him, stunned. "A partner? Caleb, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said with a grin. "You've earned it, Maya. This place wouldn't be the same without you." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, I'd be honored." The unexpected letter. One quiet afternoon, while organizing receipts in the back office, Maya found an envelope addressed to her. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the return address caught her attention. It was from the woman who had sparked the viral incident. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter. Inside, the woman wrote, "Dear Maya, I've thought about writing this letter 100 times, and I still don't know if it will be enough. I'm ashamed of how I acted that day. Seeing myself in that video was like looking at a stranger. It forced me to confront parts of myself I've ignored for too long. I want you to know that I've been working on becoming a better person. I've started volunteering at a local organization that focuses on bridging divides in our community. They've taught me how to listen and learn from others instead of judging them. It's a small step, but it's a start. I'm so sorry for the hurt I caused you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you know that your strength inspired me to change. Thank you for showing me what grace looks like. Karen." Maya sat quietly, the letter resting in her hands. It was an apology she hadn't expected, and while she wasn't sure if she was ready to forgive, she felt a sense of closure. The letter was a reminder that even the most painful moments could lead to growth and understanding. Maya's next step. As the months turned into a year, Maya's story continued to inspire others. The viral video had long since faded from the public eye, but the impact remained. Oakwood Bakery was now a thriving hub of inclusivity, and Maya had grown into a respected leader within the community. One evening, during a particularly lively Unity night, James Porter approached Maya. "You know," he said, sipping his coffee, "I think it's time you thought about expanding your impact." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" James leaned forward. "You have a voice that people listen to. Have you ever thought about public speaking? Writing? Sharing your story on a bigger stage?" The idea made Maya's stomach flutter, but it also excited her. She had spent so long staying in the background, but perhaps it was time to step forward. "I'll think about it," she said with a smile. A legacy of kindness. Maya did more than think about it. Over the next few years, she began speaking at schools, community centers, and conferences, sharing her story and the lessons she had learned. Her message was simple but powerful. Dignity, courage, and kindness could change the world, one small act at a time. The bakery continued to thrive, becoming a model for other businesses that wanted to create spaces of inclusivity and unity. Maya's journey was a testament to the power of resilience and the ripple effect of standing up for what's right. And through it all, she remained grounded, finding joy in the simple things: the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of a good conversation, and the community that had become her family. Because for Maya, the greatest victory wasn't going viral or becoming a symbol. It was knowing that, in a moment of adversity, she had chosen to rise, and in doing so, had helped others rise with her.